Hi, so you need help with the launch to color activity where you're asked to take magnitude measurements for stars, subtract them, and see if you can find a pattern that will help us define color, regardless of how bright the star is. So at my starting point here in Serpens, I have entered my RA and DEC into Navigate tool. I've gone to this spot, and I can use the notebook tool by just simply clicking on various stars and adding those to my notes. And this is the simplest way to gather up stars. And I try and make sure that I'm not just biased toward bright blue stars or large red stars. And I keep adding those to the notes. And as I go through, I make sure that I check the Select Object box to be sure that I have stars. When I've collected enough, you can decide what that is, I can go to Show Notes, and the information about each of those will come up. Now I can see that I've accidentally clicked on a couple of galaxies. I'm going to remove those by hitting the Delete button, because I only want to look at stars. The magnitude measurements for each of the stars and all the filters are above, and all the other information. I would recommend for this activity that you download this to your own computer as a CSV file and enter that in an Excel program. If you need help doing that, you'll check the help documents in SkyServer for additional information. In the second part of the video, I'm going to show you how to use something called a structured query language, or SQL query, to reach out to the database using code and telling it to return certain information. And in this case, we are not going to take a tutorial, which are available, and I'm not going to give you a lot of explanation as to what SQL is, but I'm going to do the immersion method and use a tool called Search Form and have you just learn by watching and doing, and pretty soon you'll find yourself experimenting with your own queries. What we want to do is use this tool to help us construct a query. So I'm interested in stars, so I'm going to click there. I want them to be in a particular region because each of us is working in a different area of the database. My area has a RA of 241 and a DEC of, I'm going to say, 3.5, and that gets me into the constellation Serpens. I know from having worked on this activity for a little while that an arc minute radius of 3 is going to work very well for us because it's going to return objects. I don't want too many objects, so under 50 would be just fine for this. I want to not see super bright objects in Sloan because they overwhelm the pixels and that's not very accurate. And I'm really not interested in the super dim ones because I want to confirm the color with my eyes, the color that I see with numbers. So I want to do some comparisons here. So I'm going to go to this red filter, and you can choose anything you want or play around with this. And I've decided that between magnitude 12 brightness and the dimmer end of things, 19, will return what I'm interested in. I am going to have it return all of the objects, and I'm going to have it return some magnitudes. Clicking on Generate Query will generate the query. And the next thing I want to do is modify this query so that it returns just the information that I want in the form that I want it. And to do this, we need to understand just a little bit about how this query is structured. So take a look. The first thing I want you to look at is the From line. The From line is telling the query where this information is in the database. And in this case, it is from a table called star, which we have named P. And that's important to know because we're going to look at the line above that, which is the select line. So it said select the object ID, which is the unique identifier that Sloan gives every single object in the database that it has information on. And it's going to do that from the star table P. So it's defined in the From line. It's up here in the Select line. And it also says Select, RA, and DEC, and they're all coming from that same table. And you can see all of the magnitudes here. I don't want all the magnitudes, so that's where I'm going to start modifying my query. I'm going to hit Edit Query, and I'm going to get rid of everything but the U magnitude and the R. I'm going to make sure that I leave the commas in there because those are important separators between each one of the commands in this line. And then I want it to do something else for me. I want it to take the U and subtract the R from it. So I'm going to say P, U, subtract R, and I'm going to say I would like this to be labeled as color. And the rest of it should be fairly in order. And this where line has joined two tables and said, well, I want my information to match. And there's more information on what this means in the tutorials. But the important part of the where line is I've narrowed down what information I want back to between 12 and 19. So you see this where the magnitude in R is between 12 and 19. I'll put that in parentheses because it's kind of a long command. And the last thing that I'd like it to do, because it just makes it handy for me, is I want it to order this. Order by P dot U minus R. And then I can say I'm done. And I can do something called check the syntax, and that tells me if I made any mistakes in my query. And it comes back and said, yep, you did everything right. And I can go back to my query and I can submit it in several places. I can tell that now I would like it to go into a CSV file so I can play with it in my Excel spreadsheet, or I can send it to a couple of different tools in SkyServer. Our last step is to see what kind of information our query returns to us in SkyServer. One tool we have is SkyServer itself, and when I click on that, a new tab will open and our query will be written above, just as we printed it, and our returned information below in a table. And there is our information, and it is ordered by color. And the next thing that we're going to do is take a look at the information in a different way, and we can go to image list. So we have our table of numbers, which I'm not going to interpret for you. That's going to be up to you to take a look at. And we take a look in image list. Image list is a visual tool. First thing that happens is it tells me, gives me the information set in a particular form that image list has to have it in. So it took our query and kind of modified it. It ran the query and then it put it in a form that image list likes. It tells me that I've returned 28 images, and then I'm going to send this to the list. And the next thing that will happen is it will be populated with images that match the table that we saw in SkyServer. So you can use those in combination or separately. If you click on the image, you will go to the Navigate tool. If you click on the upper bar, which has the object ID and some other information, you will go to the Explore tool if you're interested in looking at further information. Use these two tools in combination, or use an Excel spreadsheet to explore this investigation and take a look at what subtracting two magnitudes can tell us about the color of our stars. Good luck and have fun.